Well, good morning, everyone. We are at the place where we're beginning to talk about tilt patterns. I'm pretty excited about this to be at this point. And today we're going to be talking about structure, the mastermind, and keeping in mind that this is just a pattern, one pattern in a person that might end up being the one that they prefer the most and that they over rely on. And so therefore, as coaches, it's important for us to know a little bit about what's going on under the surface. So what are the first things that come up for you, either one of you, about structure?
I think I would say for sure, I live with a structure. So there's some deliberateness about choices and decisions and timing, also a focus of continuing to finish a project through to its logical end, being able to put everything else out of their mind and keep focused. There's also that element of perfectionism where it's simply not complete until it's absolutely perfect to whatever standards are in their mind. So far, that's been my experience with structure, and I'm sure there's lots more. So how about you, Erica?
Right. Yeah. It's interesting, right? Especially, where I live in, there's no structure really. So, really that, my understanding is also, what I find important is that in every settings, you need to bring in of all a little bit. So what I experience as structure is really also reliability, really thinking things through carefully to make sure, whenever you go out and do it, all the things have been checked. So, this is going to work out. So that's really quality of the structure people. But then really also moving it, forward to make sure all the boxes are checked, right?
Yeah, definitely. Some of the things that I notice when I'm coaching, and sometimes I'm aware that someone is a structure tilt, but sometimes I'm not. And I just notice the clues that somebody is either moving into structure or coming from that place, which is all we need to know, really. And one of the things that they get really upset about is what you said, Erica, is credibility. You brought this up too, Carol. Like if their credibility is questioned, that's a really big deal. You might also notice if their status is questioned. This all comes from the wisdom quadrant influence on the tilt model. So for example, if someone is going through a reorg in their company, they're going to be concerned that their title will be affected. Whereas somebody else might not care at all about that. They'll just care about, who they're reporting to or whatever. The other thing that you'll notice, I think, is that they're always interested in expanding their responsibility. They are the responsible one. I've done a lot of research on this and asked a lot of people that prefer this pattern. Did you grow up in a situation where you had to grow up too quickly and take responsibility? Like maybe they're the eldest child or the only child in a family of interacting just with adults, and possibly with parents that were kind of a mess or unorganized or something. Then a child will take on the responsibility at a young age and kind of lose their childhood. So that's part of what's going on, is that they feel like I have to be the responsible one while everybody else plays and everybody else gets to do all this fun stuff. I don't, so they form an identity that's not me. I don't get to do that. It does look fun, but I'm not going to do it. And so then there's a little bit of a judgment of those who do as well, kind of vilifying the people who are out taking clients to lunch, or the people who are just talking in meetings instead of doing. They also tend to, if they have this preference, to define work by efficiency and by tasks. So their view or definition of what is work is really different than, say, for example, the opposite, which is connection, which is really about forming relationships and having influence. So very different kind of definition of what is work. And that's also why there will be some conflict with their own connection part. And so we all know at tilt, we're all four of the tilt patterns, but we sort of alienate or allergic to the tilt that's opposite. And in this case, the opposite is connection. So I don't let myself connect. So this is all really interesting to know when you start seeing, perfectionism or workaholism or obsession coming into it, and like I'm the only one who can get it right. I'm the only one who can finish this. As you said, Erica, really, or I think it might have been Carol, an important focus on getting things done and to the finish line. So anyway, I'll stop right there and see what the two of you think.
Yeah, I absolutely see it the same way as you do. And I also would add, because they're so in a little bit of tunnel vision, right? They're so focused on a narrow aspect, they're really missing, what we have in the resilience quadrant, how can I go out and be creative, and what else could there be? It's also that efficiency you talked about. So focus, efficiency, let's get things done versus, what else is possible? How can we do it differently? What would be a cool way to do that?
Yeah, so I'm hearing all these great questions that actually need to come up in order to possibly help them out of the box that they're putting themselves in. So what comes up for you, Carol?
Well, I think it's true, and it puts us as coaches in just a little bit of a decision-making place, where what we think we want to do is, oh, I really see what you need to see in this setting, which of course is not our job as coaches, and it's not our most effective place to be in. So it does provide us, having tilt as the basis is such a beautiful gift for coaching itself, to be able to say, my intuition tells me that there are some really interesting facets of your structure tilt that are showing up right now. What might you see in this moment? And then through the course of conversation, what else might be possible, as opposed to our default position potentially as coaches saying something like, I see that, you're being a little bit of a perfectionist here. There's a great way to go about that, but it's such a marvelous tool to use to increase awareness, evoke awareness, increase insight, particularly in the realm of what else is possible, because just even those who are connection tilts get just as myopic in a different way. So it's such a beautiful tool to use as coaches. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I think is interesting is that once they have the report, you don't really have to, guide them anywhere. They already have that in the assessment, right? So it's not that we don't have to do that. It kind of takes that responsibility away from us and puts it where it needs to be with them, so that they can't unread their report. They've already seen their report. It's kind of, if they've resonated with it, it's sort of inarguable, and they're going to bring it up. So it kind of helps us to not have to guide them in a certain direction, which it gives us a lot of relief, right?
Yeah.
We can just invite the, whatever is happening. I also like to say that once they've taken the tilt, it sort of sits in their subconscious and works on its own. And in coaching, all we have to do is just show up and be there as they do the work.
And yet the beauty of it as well is that added layer of having a common language to speak now, a tilt ease, as it were, that we're able to speak, which seems when we're bringing up our intuitions and asking questions, that they don't come across quite as pointed in terms of what are you thinking at this moment, but here's some of the traits and aspects that I'm seeing. And it just it gives people the opportunity to really look at it sort of outside of themselves and say, oh, okay, maybe this could be adjusted.
Yeah, and it also takes us away from, being the expert in a session, right? So we don't have to explain tilt as such in a session, how it works, but they already know, and we can work from a very different level of just, so what else now do we do with it that we all know how it works? So I'm just curious, probably people were wondering, we give you such a big list of different coaching topics and, thoughts and questions. It sounds rather prescribed, as a prescription. So what was our thinking here about doing that?
Yeah, so we definitely don't want to be prescriptive about this. And all we're actually noticing is that there's a pattern coming up in them, and that's not who they really are. So they have so much more than just that pattern. So if we can think of our client as, that whole resourceful, creative person, everyone's creative, everyone can, go to all the places of tilt. So if we just kind of hold that space that there's a lot more here than the pattern I'm noticing. And that pattern just happens to be parts of their ego that have served them very well over the years, and helped them to be special. So those patterns are not just problem patterns, these are patterns that serve them in incredible ways and make other people want to be around them. So we don't want to take that pattern away from them, right? This is also where their strengths reside. And it's their favorite hangout. So anyway, I just kind of think that it invites an opening to their identity so that they can see themselves as more than just a pattern. And the language of the assessment is written that way. It's an invitation out of the box of how you've seen yourself and how you answer questions about yourself. So we also invite that over time that might change. The identity might change. And so that I think if we maintain that space and that belief that they're all four of the tilts in some measure, and we believe that about them, then we can help them when they get stressed or especially chronically stressed and go running to their corner because something has happened that's triggered them. And if we can invite them to be whole and think of themselves as whole and bigger and more complex, and that they contain multitudes inside them.
I love that analogy, Pam, of out of the box, because I think being in the box for all of us as humans is demoralizing, debilitating, and really shortens our ability to look beyond the outside of that box. So giving people the permission to look at things differently and make other choices empowers them to realize they can make those other choices outside of the box. And I think that's the beauty of that tilt awareness, that all of this is in here. All you have to do is grab hold of it and use it.
Yeah, I love that. So it's really mainly our job to provide that peaceful space, and that beautiful invitation to be, come out of the stress, come out of the ego, and be that real, authentic self. All right, I think we're good on structure. So we will come back to the next one, and once we get through all four, I think we'll have some pretty exciting discussions coming up.